if you see what's happened in the last 4-5 years, the cyclicality of the business is changing significantly. All of us have been used to ups and downs in business, but ever since the Lehman Brothers, what we are seeing is the ups and downs is becoming shorter. The cycles are becoming shorter, and given the complexities of the world today and the globalized economy that we live in, I think this kind of cyclicality and shorter cycles is only going to continue to the future. And there's a very relevant theme that has come up in the recent past, and it is actually being drawn from the strategic leadership of the US military. It's a very famous term which was used in the army, but now it is being used more and more in corporates and in management, which is VUCA. If you've heard of it, it's basically volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So I think this is the new world, what they call the VUCA world, and this is likely to continue for the foreseeable future. And in fact, the volatility and ambiguity is only going to increase more and more. The kind of economic things that are happening across between countries, FTAs are getting signed. China, Korea are becoming more and more competitive. India is becoming more and more attractive and easier to access. So obviously the complexities are going to only increase. So the key is what kind of leadership is needed in such an environment, and how are we going to manage in such an environment. And I think there are very good examples of companies that, even despite the difficult times that we have gone through in the last 3-4 years, have generated superior returns or have faced much better growth. So it is possible that even in such a VUCA world, a company can outperform others. There are a few things that companies need to look at. One is, no matter what the environment is, must aspire for growth. Even during difficult circumstances, it is easy to say the market is not there, so therefore we must therefore take a back seat and prepare for a no growth scenario. While that is important, and I will talk about that in a few minutes, but I think no company must accept lack of growth. And you have to start looking at the market differently. You have to look at your product segmentation differently, and still aspire for growth. Even if in the Indian market, while clearly the domestic market, which was supposed to be the high growth market, suddenly collapsed, one of the indirect benefits was the depreciation of the rupee, which has made us more globally competitive. And I'm talking not only from an auto component standpoint, across even other sectors. You take textile industry. 5 years ago, every investment analyst and consultants said that the textile industry, the export market in industry, is going to go away to Vietnam and Bangladesh, etc. But in the last 3-4 years, you've seen clearly, our competitiveness has increased, our efficiency has increased, and the dollar has helped. So again, this goes to the volatility of the market. So I think it is important to look at different segments, and the whole world is available. Today with the internet availability, the ability to sell your products and reach to customers has increased dramatically. So there are some other benefits that are available today in the market that were not there 5-6 years ago. So we should not compromise on growth. We should look at all markets, starting from the US, going to even Africa. There are people there are need for products, and therefore there is a market. So I think to look at all markets is an essential thing. So one message is, continue to look for growth from outside markets if your markets are slowed down or there is a problem. The second is efficiency. I think this is perhaps one of the most important aspect for any company, and especially coming from industries such as mine, which is the auto component industry. As it is, the customers in the last 10-15 years have forced efficiency on us. till 10-15 years ago, the auto industry was used to getting year-on-year price increases. Today, we don't win any business unless we are willing to offer the customer year-on-year price reduction. So this is the nature of the business, and there is no point in complaining about it. And what I have personally seen in the last 10-15 years is it is possible to give year-on-year price reduction to customer and generate superior returns, and that purely is coming through efficiency. And I think many of us have learned a lot from the Japanese about how to get more efficiency from your operations, and that's where in times such as these, slow down, it becomes even more relevant. And the harder you look into your operations, the harder you look internally, the more you will find opportunities. I lost my train of thought. It's okay, right? You can continue. So when you look at efficiency, there are two parts. One is the variable costs, what is actually variable in your business model, and the second is the fixed costs. And while traditionally in the last 7-8 years, many companies have been able to look at variable costs and obviously immediately scale back on the type of spend we do. We generally assume fixed cost is fixed, and I think the biggest learning that we had post 2007, at least from a Rane Group perspective, was to actually challenge the fixed cost, it is possible to break up your fixed cost into what you call discretionary and non-discretionary. So there are certain elements in your fixed cost which are discretionary in nature, and it is possible to go into that and in times of downtime review many of those items. I mean, it could be as simple as just to give a very silly example, whether you leave your lights on in the room and whether the fans are running, and whether the ACs need to be running all the time, questioning these kind of things, to going up to the kind of car that you use when you travel. So, and all these small drops add up. So in Rane now we have devised a system post our 2007-8 recession, where all the fixed costs we have broken it down into what is discretionary and what is non-discretionary. And the minute we sense a slowdown coming, immediately these discretionary cost items are challenged. And that too, if it is a large plant, there are 101 items that are discretionary there, starting from what type of maintenance spares you buy to what kind of machine reconditioning plans that you have, etc. So many of these things can be revisited in order for you to improve your efficiency. And also the workforce model is changing. Obviously for many of us, more than 50% of our fixed costs comes in terms of salaries, and even to look at your departments across various functions, whether they're technical like a manufacturing, engineering or R&D, and to more commercial like finance or stores, it is possible to break down the activities that are happening in these departments into what I would call higher value add and lower value add. I don't use the word no value add because there is every role does add some value, but there are some that are more clerical in nature or commercial in nature. So it is possible to break down these activities and look at a flexible workforce, and that is something that we have started doing in the last 3-4 years, where for activities that are less value add, we've been able to identify them, so reconfigure the role such that you have lower value added activities and then outsource it. So for example, invoicing. It's at the end of the day with clear standard operating procedures and keying in data into the computer and generating an invoice is something that can be standardized, and this can be de-skilled. And once you de-skill it, you can look at a model such that it can be outsourced. How that helps is, so in the event of a downturn, you have to move from 3 shifts to 2 shifts to maybe even 1 shift, move from 6 working days to 4 working days. So when you do these kind of things, you have the ability to scale your workforce model. Obviously, we operate in a different culture compared to Western world where hiring and firing is much easier. Although we are seeing more and more of hiring and firing happening in India also, but it is not as much as we see in the Western world. And also we are more volatile. Today you hesitate to fire people because tomorrow again the market can pick up. So that's where a flexible workforce model can also help. So these are just some examples of how you can improve efficiency. I think, of course, the other thing is the shop floor, and this is, I'm sure the lean production system is a word that has been overused across all industries, especially in the automotive industry. But at the same time, I cannot overemphasize the importance of being lean. And there are so many things that happen in a shop floor, which over time ends up because we started working in a certain way. So the objective must be to continuously challenge the way we work and identify muda, or what the Japanese call waste, to challenge everything that happens in the shop floor and look at how to eliminate muda. And there are several experts and pundits who have spent a lot of time in their careers researching and analyzing how to eliminate muda and how to be more lean. So continuous improvement in shop floor in terms of eliminating waste and improving productivity needs to be a focus area, and this has to happen whether the times are good or bad. And I would encourage every company to keep this high on their priority and priority list and focus, so that they can increase efficiency. So these are some of the things that all of us need to do. I think, as I said, the ambiguity of the future is always going to be there, but at the same time, the opportunities will also be plenty. So it is important that companies look at both growth as well as their costs in order to generate superior returns.